Hello everyone and welcome back to English 101, section S06X at MCC. Hey, good to see you all again. Sort of saying that rhetorically, but I hope you're watching me when you take time with these videos. Saw a lot of progress in week 5. Some of you are really improving your writing, and that's really what this course is all about, whether it's in discussion board or essay drafts, or replying to others in discussion board. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing. Did you know we only have 7, if I could do this here. It's harder when you're looking at it. 7 assignments left, and a couple of those you've already started on. So the light should be showing at the end of that tunnel. But hey, before we get into week 6 items, I want to talk a little bit about the persuasive essay final. Read a lot of interesting questions and positions, and I want to just go over the requirements because I think what happens is sometimes people will read the instructions and then they'll start writing and then they kind of forget to go back and check the instructions. So I've seen some significant items that are missing. So let's go to the requirements right now. So here are the persuasive essay requirements. I did see some issues with the length. Hopefully that's easy enough to address. I will say that by now, however, I do expect your MLA heading, format, spacing, font, all that jazz to be perfect. Now, I don't expect the writing to be perfect, don't get me wrong, but you really should know that by now. There's a template for that. So if you're not sure if you're doing it right, always start with that template or at least reference it as you do your revision. I want to talk briefly about the Topic Finder tool. Now, this is a tool that works pretty well for most people. It doesn't work for everything, but what it does is it gives you kind of a visual picture of what some of the components of your issue, your research question might be. And I'll just show you an example that I just pulled up a few minutes ago. Minimize this. What I did is I went into opposing viewpoints and context. I clicked on advanced search and then it brought me to Topic Finder, and I put in driver's education. I did this because Evan is working on this, and I feel like there are so many facets, and you can see that all these areas you can break down even further. So he was talking especially about teenage drivers. If I click on that, you can see it brings up even more items. I can reset. And he mentioned some of the specifics, at least in Michigan, of driver's ed. Some of you are recent drivers. Some of you have been doing this for a while, so maybe you have some memory of that. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So if you haven't used Topic Finder, run your research question through it. Now, you may not have to phrase it as a question. You want to get some keywords in there and play around with some keywords. You get more or less results as you do that. And that can help you for both a persuasive essay, but also the term paper, especially for those who are turning the persuasive essay into the term paper, building it out from the middle and adding more sources. So let's go back to our requirements one more time. The next item I want to talk about is how you give credit. And so what I've done is I've got my, this is just a reminder to look at the PowerPoint, but just to show you in a nutshell how it works, I've got my, let's see if I can find it here. I'm going to open up my Making Space for Safe Recycling here. Here it is. See if it will let me do that. There we go. So this is an essay. It feels like I just wrote this last summer. Apparently it's almost 3 summers ago. But just to show you how this works, I'm still getting people doing this again kind of wrong. So here is the first quote I use, and I've introduced it. So I just said British researchers Brian O'Neill and Dinesh Mohan state that. So there's the names, there's a signal, and then here's the actual quote. That's the way you want to start. Now, if there are no authors, then you would put the full title of the article. We call that an unsigned article. And sometimes some of you had some of those where there were no authors. That's fine. Then you just use the article title. Now, notice how I come back to them. Here's another quote on the next page, all the way here. And notice how easy it is. Because I've already introduced them, I don't want to do that again. All I need to do here now is use their last names. And here's another one, another quote from them. That's really all there is to it. Now I know I'm probably oversimplifying. The use of numbers in parentheses, you shouldn't be using any numbers in parentheses unless you actually know the exact page number. So those numbers don't mean it's the first time you quote. It doesn't correspond to if you've numbered things in the works cited. We don't number anything in the works cited. It's all alphabetical order. So you shouldn't have numbers in there unless maybe you actually are looking at a PDF, you know, and you can scroll and see, oh, it's on page 36 or something like that. So if you haven't read the essay, hang on a minute. If you haven't read Making Space for Safe Recycling, I would encourage you to do that, and please keep it open as a model. It will help you with both the persuasive and the final term paper. One more thing for persuasives. Close this. And then the next thing I want to do is talk about conclusions and, beginnings and conclusions. So you'll always want to begin with one of these strategies from the UNC Writing Center and conclude with one of the Harvard Writing Center. This is a requirement, by the way. So here's the page on introductions. Talks about their role and what effective ones are, and then it gives you actually some strategies. And some of you have used these, but most of you are not. And I know the introduction is kind of hard to write, so I always tell people that should be something you revise at the end. At least I do, so you know what to do. And here's the section on essay concluding ideas from the Harvard Writing Center. And again, one of the things it tells you here that I am wholeheartedly in agreement with is avoid like in summary, to sum up, in conclusion. We know it's your conclusion. How? Because it's the last paragraph on the page. So it's a really redundant and ancient way of doing things. And you might have been taught that way to say in conclusion and give a summary. I used to teach that too. But what I've discovered at college level writing is we need to be a little bit more sophisticated. So for example, my introduction for Making Space for Safe Recycling, I tell the story of Charles Pickett. I won't tell you much about it, but he murdered some cyclists, to be honest with you. And you can read about it if you want. For my conclusion, I talked about some of my own experiences as a rider and how improving safety not only makes riders safety, but it makes pedestrians and cars and motorcyclists, if we're all thinking about this, safer. So there's like a bigger context. And that, again, is one of the suggestions there. So those are some ideas for persuasive. The final is due this week. It is our last of the 3 short essays. But let's go into week six now and talk about what's left, which is our final essay and a few other things along the way here. So let's go in there. Excuse me, I'm going to close a couple things here. So let's go into week 6, which is about our research term paper. So here's your link for a persuasive essay. And let's talk about discussion boards. So I'm going to introduce you to 2 techniques which you are very, very likely to use in college essays. Try to keep this practical. The first is what we call a block quote, and the next term is what we call an indirect quote. So I've got this link open for this particular thread, and I just wanted to do one of them because my computer sometimes crashes if I have too many things open. So let's see what an indirect source is. So what this is sometimes what you'll have is a speaker here. So we have Lauren Christy. And Lauren Christy says they had a unique style of debate. So Lauren Christy is the speaker, but Lauren Christy is not the author. So if I don't include the author somehow, and I'm looking for Christy, but Christy didn't write the article, I'm never going to find it, and we'll have this big discrepancy. So here's the workaround, and it's really quite brilliant, works out, and it's pretty easy to do. By the way, a couple of you already done this, and so I pointed out, hey, you could use this for your thread example this week. So read my comments on persuasive essays. They're on Blackboard for you. So what we do is we say, okay, so Lawrence Christie said this, but it is quoted in this source by Anderson. Now here it's actual paginated source. It's unlikely you will have that. So discussion board dealing with a block quote and with an indirect quote. And again, I didn't go into this one here, but there is a link for an example for you. You will be submitting MLA term paper first drafts here into a peer group. Please remember you have to submit it where it says here. That's why I have that, and to the peer group. If it goes to the peer group, I can't score it. It doesn't appear in the grade book. It's like it doesn't exist. And that's because the peer group is like this little universe that floats out over here that I don't have access to because I'm down over here, my hand's right, in the world of Blackboard. They don't communicate. You would think they would, they don't. And there's no way for me to do that. So quite a few of you are forgetting to do that. Please remember to submit both to Blackboard and the peer group so it's all there. Now, it will be a pretty substantial reading. So once you join a group, don't wait until the evening of the last day to read these research essays. They're going to be anywhere from 5 to 8 pages. And it's going to take you a while to read them and to comment on them and track the sources to make sure all the sources from the works cited are in the essay and so forth. So my advice is try to do one, earlier rather than later. Now, again, looking at our schedule here, it won't be next week until you're writing those comments. So you're just submitting a first draft today. All right. And you can see that brings us to the end of this week. Now, it doesn't look like much in terms of ABC, but there are quite a few tasks in there to deal with. And let me just leave you with one little sermon or homily, depending on maybe your spiritual background. This is the time of year where people will often, say to me, can I still get an A in this class? I can't really answer that question. I mean, you can look at the numbers and probably figure it out as well as I can. But the bigger question here is it an A you're after? Or is it that you want to learn how to become a better writer? So you're looking at Mr. B, B plus, B minus on some days. When I was an undergraduate, I was just happy to have the education I had. Now I had disappointments and thought I could have done better. And I had really hard instructors in college, which kind of shaped me enormously. But keep in mind, it's about the journey. The grade is a component of that. I can tell you this, that your employer probably isn't going to care about your grade. At least your first employer might have a big deal about that, but most of your employers are going to look at your experience once you've got your education and your training and you're moving on. So just my little encouragement to you that just keep writing, doing the best you can in the course, and we'll see where everything lands at the end. And that's really what education is all about. It's not like we could just plug in, turning in an assignment, do this, and it just spits out an A. Remember the quality of those assignments, the level of quality, effectiveness, acceptability are part of that. Well, sorry, didn't mean to drop the sermon on you there. As usual, if you have questions about what's going on this week, next week are big weeks. And then after that, it's really what I call like the turn-in week. So it's really not this huge ending. It almost fades off at the end. But I think that's kind of good because I know a lot of you have other classes with exams that are actually hard exams. We have an easy exam, so don't stress over that. And so I try to keep that a little bit more manageable. Well, good talking to you all again. Hope if you have questions, you'll contact me and we can chat some more. Take care.